we will go ahead and get started. Becky and I developed this program actually last year. As we were ending the decade and moving into a new decade, we had so many goals and so many exciting things that we wanted to share. And one of the things that was extremely important to us was goal setting. And we feel like there are 4 steps to goal setting. So it's not just, hey, I'm going to write down my goals and see if it happens or not. We feel like there is a process to goal setting. And so that's what we're going to guide you through today. And the first thing that we want to talk about is reflection. And a lot of times I feel like this is a step that we definitely miss, because reflection gives us that opportunity to go back and look at maybe some things that were successful throughout the year, and then maybe some things that we didn't do so well that we want to work on going forward. And reflection is not somewhere where you should stay forever, right? When you're in a car and you're driving, you don't always look at your rearview mirror the entire time. It's just a glance, and then you're just going forward because you're not staying back there, you're heading forward. So with that time of reflection, we feel like it gives you, again, an opportunity to look at any achievements that you may have had throughout the year, and then also just any failures or any opportunities that you may have experienced. And I know failure is oftentimes a very negative word, but we feel like a failure is truly a failure. Just stay there and you don't do anything with it. If you get up and move on, then it's truly not a failure. It's just a learning opportunity. So when you can really embrace those things and stay humble, then you can really move forward. So what we want to do in a couple of minutes at this point is really ask you to think about some things in 2020. So this has been an absolutely kind of insane year for everyone with the pandemic, all the things that's been going on throughout the year. So we want you to just take a couple of minutes, and we're going to give you some time to write down some things that's happened this year. And I'll give you a couple of examples, and I'm going to give you a positive example, and then I'm going to give you a not so positive example. So my positive example is at the beginning of the year, I really wanted to focus on family time. I knew my daughter was graduating from high school and she was going to be moving to Eastern and going to school. And so family time was extremely important to me, and I wanted to be super intentional about that. So, as a family, we try, but we really don't make the best effort sometimes because, let's be honest, we all have lives, so we're all busy. But with the pandemic, it did give us some time to just kind of slow down. We were in lockdown for a while. We had a lot of opportunities to just be present and be together. And it was one day that my 2 daughters and I were on a walk. I think it was maybe in late March. And we were walking together in our neighborhood, and my kids weren't fighting. There's 7 years difference between them, and typically they're always at each other's throats because they're both girls. But they were actually just getting along, and we were walking, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is great. This is something that I wanted us to focus on this year, and we're actually doing it, and we're outside. We're not on our phones. We're not watching TV. We're just enjoying ourselves. So I thought that was just really great, and we truly tried to carry that on throughout the year. Then comes my opportunity or my failure. So the thing that I did in Q2, Q3 was it was summer. I have a pool. Some of the friends of ours have a boat, so we live near Laurel Lake, and we love to go boating a lot. Becky and I laughed last night. I said I kind of missed the boat this summer because I kind of, let my guard down and I didn't work as hard. But I was on a boat a lot of the time this summer. So, but I really kind of let my guard down a little bit, and I didn't work as hard as I should have because I was just enjoying myself so much. So as the last 90 days of the year popped up, I realized, oh my gosh, I've kind of dropped the ball on some things. And so now I'm working overtime and double time trying to catch up for those moments that I missed. So we want you, if you don't have the packet downloaded yet, just take out a piece of paper or, whatever best suits you on how you take notes. But think about 2020 as a whole. And again, this is your time of reflection. And just think about some of those moments that were great, that stood out to you, that you definitely want to carry into the new year. And then also think about some things that, weren't so great habits, like truly letting your guard down and just, not being present for maybe the summer like I was. So take just a couple minutes, and if you want to break it down into quarters, we kind of have it broken down on the sheet like that because sometimes it's easier to remember. And we're only going to give you 2 minutes because this is something that we want you to do after the session. And something that Becky and I both do is we'll go through our social media post. We'll go back and look at our journals and see what moments really stood out to us. So this is something that's going to carry you forward. But for now, just kind of think of some things that that you think about for 2020 that you either want to leave behind for 2021 or carry forward. Great. Okay, so good deal. Learn new technology. That's awesome. Microsoft Teams is something that we're learning this week as well, so that's great. Broken family relationships, that's sad. That's happened a lot too. We've had a lot of loss this year. So, that's something that definitely we can all work on going forward. End of Q1 might have been a total failure. Start a new job, which I love. Awesome. Good. Zoom has forced me to actually go to therapy. Great. So see, there are a lot of good takeaways, and there are a lot of a lot of good lessons learned. So, we want you to continue this process as you leave today. Please walk away. Don't stop here. If you have the packet or if you haven't downloaded it yet, we please ask you to do that. There are some journaling prompts at the bottom of the screen of that packet that we would love for you to consider. Like, what were some of your most memorable moments of 2020? That's a great one too. What habits and behaviors do you want to continue? So there are some journaling prompts at the bottom of that first page for you to access. So after today's session, please go back and continue to do that. It's been a tough year for all of us. Some of us have had loss, a lot of family, emotional things going on. So how can we change that going forward? So if you have the packet downloaded, turn over to page 2, and we're going to talk about looking forward. We talked about, reflection is not where we want to stay, right? We want to actually just kind of look back and see what opportunities that we have. And it is a great place for us to learn, gain insights, but it's also a great place for us to consider what are some non-negotiables going into the next year. One of the things for me that I'm still working on, lady, I'm just a work in progress, but I will come home and typically get on my phone or go straight to the TV sometimes. So that's something I'm working on, and we'll talk about that in a little bit about habits. But one of the non-negotiables for me was, not being present for my family because I knew my daughter was going to be moving out. So when you think about, what you want to do looking forward, think about what are some non-negotiables for you, and then what are the consequences if you don't do those things. So maybe that is not working weekends. Maybe that's, spending more time with your family. And then also being grateful. That's something that Becky and it's a practice we do every single day. We write down 5 things that we're grateful for. And they're not the big things, like your home and family, which those are obviously very important to you, but it's looking for those small things. We feel like, the more that you look for those small moments to be grateful, then the more you're going to find those. So every day we write down 5 things that we're grateful for, and that's where we try to shift our focus daily and not all the negative things that we see. So, staying away from the news, that can depress you after a while. So making sure that you're just making space for gratefulness. And then we have one more exercise for you to do. really quickly, and then I'm going to let Becky take over. But if you have a piece of paper, if you have the packet, that's great. If you don't, just take out a piece of paper, and what we want you to do is on the left side of that paper is write down some things that are truly important to you. So whatever that is, your family, your home life, your career, your pets, whatever that looks like for you. And then on the right side of that piece of paper, then we want you to write down how you're currently spending your time. So do you come home from work immediately? You hop on the TV, hop on your phone? What does that look like? And again, be completely honest. Nobody's going to see this. This is just for you. If you do want to share, please do. But just take maybe a minute and write down the things that are important to you on one side, and then write down on the other side how you spend your time. Okay? So take just another minute to do that practice. So we hope that you guys had an opportunity to just kind of think about some things. I know one thing for me that Becky and I talked about yesterday was, you know, being, I'm Christian, and being present is extremely important for me. Yet, when I'm looking how I'm spending my time, I'm not taking that time to truly invest in, my prayer time like I should be, because I've been really busy, and that's no excuse. But that's something that I know I definitely need to work on going forward into 2021. And family too. Family is extremely important to me, but I'm not always present because I am working a lot. I am on my phone a lot. I get called out for that all the time by my kids. So, anyway, those are a couple of my things. So what I'm going to do now is just hand it over to Becky, and she's going to talk to you about resetting and some habits.
Hey guys, so yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite things to talk about. And Billie and I have got like all kinds of ideas on creating habits or building habits. To be honest with you, like there's a lot of books out there that we've read. We'll share those with you as we go along. And then we'll also have a resource where we'll have all this information in one place. So with hitting the reset button, it really is important that you kind of have a filter to look through. So one of the big things that I do, and I'd love to hear in the chat, or even if somebody's brave enough to speak up, we'd love to hear if this is something that you've done before or you've heard of, and that is creating a word of the year. So for 2020, my word of the year was invest. So to just kind of give you a little bit of, okay, so what do you do with this word of the year? Well, I post it everywhere. I have it on my watch. I have it as the screensaver on my phone. I have a bracelet that says invest. Like, sincerely, it's everywhere. But what I use that word for is really to remind myself throughout the year of what's important to me. So when I created the word or decided on the word invest, for me, it was really about not just investing money wise, that's important too. Note to self, I need to do more of that, but also investing in like what we just put down that's important to us, right? On my list, top of my list is my family, right? So making sure that I'm actually spending time with my family. So if there's something that I'm like, oh, I want to do this or I want to do that, like I ask myself, like, what are you investing in? What's important to you? Health, right? Here's another one that's really important to me. And I ask myself, like, okay, do I want to sleep in, which is healthy, or do I want to get my butt out of the bed and get my workout in? So again, like I use that filter all the time to say, like, this is important to me. This is a goal that I've set for myself. So I'd love to hear, have any of you created a word of the year before? Or are any of you intrigued by it? We'll talk a little bit more about the word of the year as we go. But with that word, like it really is important that you just identify like what kind of life do you want to live? Like where's the meaning for you? And when my husband and I first dropped our son off to UK, we took this weekend in Nashville and we created like life goals. And from those life goals, then that's really what continues to drive me and helps me to create that meaningful life. But I have to be super cautious and extremely critical about, how I do that. So some of the habits that I created are being intentional, but also then envision what does that look like and how do I want to do this. So some of the things we do and we talk about is just the importance of continuing like the repetition. So, you know, whatever it is, whether it's, like I said, family time. So do we mark that on our calendar? Do we create that time? Are we intentional about it? So I think that that's really important. Sometimes we have to do that. And I don't, you know, I don't want to say that it just always comes natural, because like Billie said, sometimes it's super easy to say, oh gosh, I really got this deadline that I need to get done for work. And my family might want to go out and do something. And I'm like, oh, but, you know, and it's so easy to say, yeah, let me work late. But I think about creating those habits of making sure that we understand what's important to us, then it's a lot easier to say, you know what, I'm going to schedule some time to do that. But for now, it's important for me to spend time with my family. So, I'd love to hear a little bit more about like kind of habits that you guys have created. So one of the things that we have done is we talk about like, what is it that, what habit or what do we want to change? So in your packet, this is page 3. We've got an activity where I want you to think about what's the habit that you want to change. And what's interesting to me about habits is some of these things just happen, right? I always talk about like we fall into happenstance, right? Where I didn't intend for this to become a habit, but more often than not, like I was trying to, in that second column there, I was trying to identify a feeling that I wanted, right? In our example here, the feeling that we wanted was like that relaxation that would help us fuel us with more energy go forward. But what I want you guys to do is write down like what is the habit that you know you've, whether it's intentional or happenstance, right, that you've fallen into or that you've created or that you have. What feeling were you looking for? What do you want to replace it with? Right. So if we, in our example here, and I think Billie used this a little while ago, you know, coming home from work, or for me going from my office, you know, back into, you know, my personal life, because I'm working from home. So it's like, how do I move intentionally from that work mode into like family time or time to relax and re-energize? So one of the biggest things that we have started doing, I say started, I don't really mean that we just started because we've never done this, because we've both always been active, but like we kicked it up a notch, right, Billie?
Yes, definitely.
So a lot of research talks about the brain and how when you move your body, you literally change your mind. And I don't know about you, but that gets me pumped up. Like, I think that that's critical. So for us, like we were like, well, how can we feel this downtime, like this relaxation, but also be inspired to do more and, you know, to truly, when we go back to work, to be really intentional there. So for us, instead of going straight to the couch and watching TV, it's we got to go to the gym beforehand, or we got to jump on our bike beforehand, or whatever that looks like. So I want you guys to take a little bit of time now, think about the habits that you have in place. Again, intentional or not, it's okay. We're not judging you. Believe us, like we've got a lot of interesting habits, I'll say, of our own, but also like really stop and think about, why do you have that habit? Like, what is it that you were trying to feel? You know, what was it? What feeling were you trying to achieve at that point? And what's something more positive that might serve you better that you can replace it with? And then make a commitment to yourself, right? So, what are you going to do about it? So I'll give you guys a minute here so you can kind of, again, if you've got pen and paper or you're not able to create the PDF, that's totally fine. Just write down habit I want to change. That'll be column 1. What I think it gives me, or the emotion, right? What are you trying to find? The next column is, what are you going to replace it with? So what are you going to start doing? And then what's the commitment that you're putting on yourself? So you will what? What are you going to do? All right. So you guys take a minute here. Feel free to drop anything in the chat. We love to hear from you guys. Habits that maybe even you have some good habits. So feel free to share those too. We're always looking for some good habits. And then as you guys are doing that, I want to just kind of bring your attention to, Billie and I are always about like good studies, good research. So I think this one really kind of hits home as far as writing it down. And Billie mentioned this earlier, right? Like gratitude journal, writing it down, having a journal specifically. Again, writing it down is critical. So you see that Harvard study down there that it's much more likely that you're going to achieve your goals when you write them down. And then, yes, turning off electronics 30 minutes before bedtime, critical. And I'm totally guilty. I promise I'm not judging on you. I'm right there with you. And again, there's research that says, right, like you have to shut down, like those blue lights will keep you up longer. So then when we're wondering, why can I not go to sleep? Yeah, that's a good one. So again, like we said, feel free to continue this as you guys continue to go through. It's really, really important. All right. So I'll hand it back to Billie to talk to us a little bit about our next one, which is reinforce.
Awesome. So now we're getting into the goal section. You guys are probably like, are we going to set goals or what? But we feel like these two steps are so critical because, you know, if you want to set really good life-sustaining goals, then you have to look back and then you have to see and think about the things that you want to reset going forward. So the next thing we're going to talk about is reinforcing your why. And this is personal for everyone. You know, your why may be touching and extremely inspiring, or your why may be, look, I just really need money to pay for ballet lessons or art lessons. So, you know, whatever that looks like for you, that's totally fine. So right now we want you just to think about, you know, when you're 80 years old, this is something that we talk about, Cultivate What Matters. This is a great resource, but she says in this goal planning session that she does, you know, when you're 80 years old and you look back at your life, what was important to you? You know, was it, oh my gosh, I didn't get picked for a specific project? Or, you know, is that really important? So when we talk about your why, we want you to talk about just the mindfulness about it and that self-actualization. When you're 80 years old, what will have fulfilled you throughout your entire life? And as we prepare to reinforce your new habits going forward, you know, they need to align with what you want to achieve when you're 80. And you know, we always talk about that, and I'm a big proponent of this, but there is nothing magical about New Year's Day, right? I mean, we New Year's Eve, we've done this for years. We always set, you know, these New Year's resolutions. But there's nothing magical about New Year's Day. It's just another day on the calendar. So start now. You don't have to wait till New Year's Day. Becky and I joke about this with my husband all the time because he will never start a diet or an exercise program unless it's on a Monday. Now, it could be Monday at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and he goes, no, I got to wait till next Monday. Now, he does not have to wait till next Monday, but he just continually puts it off for whatever reason. But you don't have to wait. You can pivot at any time and try to get, you know, to those goals that you want to achieve. So as we go through these things, I promise I'll start on Monday. Yeah, I've heard that a lot. You know, think about that new word of the year that you want to consider. And, you know, I've been thinking about the word strong. 2020 was a really tough year for me. We had a lot of loss. I lost my mother in February. Just a lot of things going on this year. But strong, I just want to read this definition really quickly to you. It says, strong is someone who has confidence, determination, and emotional strength. Not easily broken, damaged, or destroyed, a lot of power and force. And I even bought a bracelet that says strong is beautiful. And so, you know, that's something I really want to focus on in 2021. That's really important to me. So if you have your packet, flip over to page 4, and we're going to talk about goals now. So as you think about your goals, we want you to think about obviously things that are specific and measurable. And that's really, really important. If you just say, I want to run more, well, that's great. Obviously, health is really important to us, but that is not specific or measurable. What does more look like? And one of the things that I always want to do is read more. Personal development is extremely important to me. So I have to put it on a deadline. So, like for December, I'll give you an example. I wanted to read a book in December, and I got the book on December 2nd. I knew that it had 221 pages, so I broke it down every day. How many pages did I need to read every single day to make sure I finished that book by the end of the month? And I'm already behind, so no judgment, please, but I'm already behind. But I'm going to catch up because I know I have to double up the next day. But just make sure that those goals are on a deadline. If you don't, they're just a lot more, they feel unattainable, or, they don't have as much importance. So if you are setting a schedule, setting a deadline, making those important to you, then you're more likely to hit those goals. And then lastly, make it yours. That is so important. Don't have someone else's goal in mind. Make sure it's your goal. And one thing that we have been doing that I absolutely love, that because sometimes I'll be like, oh, Becky's goal is to do more yoga. Well, I don't really do yoga. I like to run. I like to do cardio. Yoga is just not my thing. Don't judge me if you love yoga, but it's just not for me. So, I was like, I'm going to make this goal to do yoga. Well, I don't like yoga. So, mine looks different than hers. So we have this practice, and it's called the have, be, do practice. And it's in the packet also, so you can access that later. But what we want you to do at some point, we don't have to do that today, but if we have time, we may. But write down, take a timer, and be completely uninterrupted for at least 15, 20 minutes. And what we want you to do is take, 5 minutes and write down all the things that you want to have in life. Do you want to have a house on the lake? That's a goal for me. Do you want to have better health, better mental health? Do you want to have a meaningful career? So take some time, write down all the things that you want to have in life. Then secondly, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a certified life coach, a marathon runner, a chef, an excellent spouse, an excellent partner, an excellent cook, debt-free, whatever those things you want to be. And then lastly, what do you want to do? I have a goal to travel all 7 continents. I've made it to 3, so I want to go to all 4, and hopefully we'll be able to travel again soon someday. And I want to have a glass of wine at the Eiffel Tower because that was always my mother's goal, to go to Paris. So I want to do that in her honor. So what are those things that you want to do in life? So that is a great way to kind of frame those goals if you have a hard time coming up with those. So the have, be, do method, we really encourage that. And again, it doesn't have to take a lot of time. You can do 5, 10, 15 minutes, set it aside, come back to it later. But it's just a great way to kind of brain dump and get your mind thinking about, what's really important to me and what do I want out of life? Again, thinking about when you're 80, what's going to be important to you. So I'm going to hand it back over to Becky, and she's going to talk about the tracking your goals, which is really, really important also.
Thanks, Billie. So we talk about, earlier Billie had mentioned cultivate what matters. And this is just the way I personally used to track it. I know that Billie has attempted it and maybe it was a little bit overwhelming for her. So keep this in mind, guys. Like, the goals that you have are going to be unique to you. The way you track them is going to be unique to you. What might work for me might not work for you. So you have to really make sure, like, practice these, right? Try them out. I always say this, like, put it on like a new pair of shoes. If it fits and feels right, great. If not, try something else, right? It's no big deal. So in the Cultivate What Matters, she has a planner that's called the Power Sheets. And what I love about the power sheets is similar to the life planning that I talked to you about before, is you set like yearly goals. And so then within those goals, you kind of break that down and say, okay, what are my monthly goals? What are my weekly goals? What are my daily goals? Look, I'll tell you, like, honestly, I sent somebody yesterday, can you start tracking your day in 15-minute increments? Okay, that might be a little bit overkill, but hey, what's really cool about it though is then you can go back and see, hey, this is something that was really important to me at the beginning. Not only did I just kind of started to like slowly see some progress. And in the power sheets, there's a page for, I think she calls it tending, because it's all about like a gardening and cultivating what matters. But you put an X on every day that you did whatever your goal was, and you get to write them in. So for me, let's say it's working out. So every day you get this endorphin, right? Like where not only did you do the thing, but then I get to go back and I get to put a check mark to say that I did it. And call me crazy, but I get fulfillment from that. Like, it's important for me then to look back and say, oh, like look at all this that I've accomplished. And there's a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport, and he talks about like how important that it is, like how we don't want to break that chain. So, you know, as much as me seeing myself getting stronger, the other thing that's critical is like I'm building trust with myself. So how important is that? So again, tracking is really critical. I also, like I told you guys, I totally overkill this one. I use my power sheets. I have an app on my phone where I track habits. We'll definitely share all those so that you guys, if you're interested in being our friends and seeing our habits and then helping to hold each other accountable, we can totally do that as well. But again, like for me, that just works for me. It helps me to create that habit quicker. However, like Billy, like the power sheets was a little bit overkill. We talk about our goals constantly, so it's not necessarily for her to write them down every single day or check a box off, and that's totally cool too. So then I want to move into visualizing. And there's so much power in this. And I'll be honest, like I've always known that there's power in visualizing. But I'll tell you a little story that just kind of made it real for me this week. Within our company, one of the things that we're getting ready to do for 2021 is to do some art journaling around creating our habits. So I'd done this previously at a yoga conference. So I was telling Billy about it. I pulled out like this big box that I had, and in there I'd created a bucket list. And I think it was like, what did I say, Billy, back from like 2014, 2015, 2016. And I pulled it up, and like I've got these cards that are my bucket list, and literally I just started like with my pen and paper started like checking these boxes off. Now look guys, I wrote that down years ago, put it in a box. I thought I forgot about it, but most of those things have happened. Like, so now I'm like, I got to create a new bucket list, which how great is that? Um, so you can do it visualizing. You know, we talk a lot about doing like vision board where maybe you use like magazines and you put like, you know, some pictures that inspire you. Maybe you want to use Pinterest, right? We've done that before too, so that's a really important one. And it's fun. It's a good way to add that creativity. So visualization, really, really important. We'd love to hear, like, from a tracking perspective of visualizing, if there's anything that you guys have done before or used, feel free to share in the chat. We'd love to hear that. All right. And then I will hand it back over to you, Billy.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And I do want to just talk about visualization for 1 second. I have this amazing story that I love to tell just about the power of visualizing your goals. I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of this prisoner of war. His name was Colonel Hall. He was a Vietnam prisoner of war. And he was in prison for 7 years. And he said that the thing that really got him like through that process and through just making it was golf, thinking about golf every single day. So he visualized, he had a stick in his prison cell and he would like visualize hitting the golf ball every single day. He visualized what the greens smelled like, everything. And then after he was released, 6 weeks later, he went and played golf and played the best golf he had ever played in his entire life. So I thought that was just such an amazing story about just visualizing your goals and seeing yourself in that moment and just the power of that. So we really believe that, using those vision boards, using art journaling, whatever that looks like for you, is so critical in hitting your goals and getting you there faster. So, time to rise. So the wheel of life. And I was actually on a call yesterday for the wellness. And then Devin, if you guys were on this morning, she actually kind of talked about this a little bit too. But rising up, and this is so important because if we don't have balance, and she talked about work-life balance. I don't even know if there is such a thing as work-life balance. But when you make your goals, just make sure that they're not all focused in one area. And I'll be honest, I've been guilty of this in the past, that I have put all my eggs in one basket in my career when I was early on in my career, and my family suffered from that. So as you set your goals, it's really important to make sure that they're balanced and that you're covering all aspects of your life. You want to be a very well-rounded individual. And if you're not taking care of yourself, then you're not going to be successful. So obviously make sure that, career, finances, whatever that looks like for you, personal growth is important. But just make sure you're covering all areas of your life. And what Becky and I love to do is we'll do these monthly. And then as we end the year, we'll go back and look at these every month or every year and just go back and look month to month. How were we doing and what were some gaps and how are we going to fix those going forward? So that's a great way for you guys to also just reflect on the year ahead and think about how you want to set those intentions. So the Wheel of Life it's great. There's tons of resources on the internet for you guys for that, and you can access those at any time. And just make sure that you're filling in those gaps. And then just the last thing we want to say is just, we've talked about a lot of information this morning. So how are you going to show up differently? I posted this question on Facebook yesterday, and it was amazing to me to see the responses. So the question I asked just on my personal page was, if you could eliminate one negative emotion from your life, what would that be? And so think about that for a second. If you could eliminate one negative emotion from your life, what would it be? And feel free to put that in the chat because I would love to see what your responses are. Because overwhelmingly, we had so many people say anxiety, not feeling worthy, not living up, guilt. Definitely guilt was one. Was I a good enough mother? Was I a good enough wife? So, that's a mindset shift that we really need to focus on. So if we want to show up differently in 2021, we need to change our mindset. And that's not easy, right? I mean, mine is worry, self-doubt. I mean, I have a lot. And every time someone would write one down, I would be like, oh my gosh, I can relate to that too. So obviously I have a ton, but just, showing up, rising up differently. If we want 2021 to look differently, then we need to show up differently. And that means changing our mindset. And then think about what are the consequences of not showing up. So, for me, it was, if I don't show up for my family, my daughter's going to move out, and then I've missed out on all this precious time that I could have been spending with her. So what are the consequences if you don't show up for your work, your family, yourself? Taking care of yourself should be number one, honestly, because you can't pour from an empty cup. So it's time to shine. We have loved our time with you. I'm going to let Becky close it up. But if you have any questions for us, please let us know. I know somebody did ask about a Facebook group. I'll put that in our chat for you guys. And it's been a pleasure today. And Becky, I'll let you finish us out.
Yeah, thanks, Billie. Love that example. And as you were saying that, I was like, I haven't seen your post. I haven't had time to be on Facebook in the last day or so. But I was thinking to myself, like, what would I put? And then everybody started dropping. I was like, yep, there it is. Oh yeah, there. And then there's that. So absolutely. So, and somebody also asked in the chat, do we have like Facebook? We absolutely do. We're on Facebook and Instagram. I think we're in several other places too. But if you can follow us, you're welcome to on Forward Progress Solutions. We've got, a lot that we're super excited for coming into 2020. So feel free to, jump on there. If you're interested in kind of seeing what we've got coming, feel free to sign up for our newsletter. We would love to have you guys. And one of the things I was telling Billy, like as we wrap up, I'm an executive coach. So a lot of things that I'll constantly do is say, like, so I'd love to hear, and you guys can drop in the chat. I'd love to hear, like, what's the one thing that you're going to take away, right? So is it that you're going to start doing the Wheel of Life? Is it that you feel like, the tracking is really important to you? Do you need to reevaluate what goals you have, or maybe you don't have any and you want to go ahead and create some? So feel free to go ahead and drop those in the chat. And then I want to challenge you. How will you know when it's done? So just like Billy said, go back and identify what does success look like in that area. Don't just write the goal and then call it a day. Although what you saw is from a visualizing perspective, there's power in that. But if you want to really light year that ahead, I encourage you to be mindful and going back to that often, right? Reflecting and continuing. So again, feel free to share, even if it's something that you don't want to share in the Facebook page, or I'm sorry, in the chat here. Feel free to reach out to us on our Facebook page and share anything that you guys are working on or that you're moving towards in 2021. And just like Billy said, thank you so much for allowing us this time, and we hope you have a wonderful day.